Hari Om. So far, we have seen what meditation is, more precisely, what meditation is not, and we have also gone through in understanding those steps which we usually are told as steps of meditation are actually the steps that are required in the preparation for meditation. They themselves are not qualified to be called or recognized as meditation, but definitely it is something that can be put under the category as preparatory steps. And these preparatory steps we have thoroughly gone through in our uh, last of this series, just the one before this. But then there are certain questions, doubts, queries which keep highlighting or bothering us. So let us evaluate them. Who is meditating? What is being meditated upon? And as a net result, what is it that is being experienced? Who or what is experiencing it? And how does it feel, that experience? So let us start with the first one. Who is meditating? The conscious principle has ever been pure and eternal. That existential conscious principle is Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swarupaha. Its nature is Swarupaha Nitya Vastu. It is eternal. Eternal because it is the existential principle. It is the very existence. And this existential principle, the very existence, is Shuddha Vastu. It has always been pure. There is no scope for impurity to ever persist or exist. So, therefore, it is Nitya Shuddha. And it is ever awareful, ever conscious. Because what happens, we keep hearing these sound bites wherein they said meditation is a state of no mind. When I tell, if that is the state that you want to reach, then eat nice curd rice with some avakai in it and go to sleep. You don't need any other sadhana. Why? Because in deep sleep, as per the definition, Sushupti Avastha, the mind is not in any sort of functioning interaction with the outside world or with its own internal projection. So then we have to understand what are these different phases in which the mind usually functions. There are two of them. That where the mind, in the format of thoughts, feelings, emotions, convictions, ideas, ideals, through the organs of perception and action, interact with the world outside, that is called Jagrada Avastha or the waking world. Contrast to that, the mind is still functional, but it is not interacting through the organs of perception action. It is purely projecting its own themes in the dream world. Other than that, that it is projecting in its own uh, impressions out, there is no much validity to it because they are not real. The impressions that we have gathered in the waking world, we project them in the dream world. Now, the third state is the deep sleep state, wherein in that deep sleep state, the mind technically is and essentially not functional. It is not interacting with anything. So, when it is not interacting, but when I wake up, I know that I have been asleep. How? I see that my mind for this particular period was non interactive. Okay. What does it prove? Before I go into the aspect of what does it prove, let me give you an example so that that which I'm going to state becomes very clear. Supposing there is a surveillance camera, it is 24/7, 365 recording, and at this point, if that surveillance camera is what is recording all this, so it is recording me speaking with all this backdrop and everything. At night, I shut everything down, the lights, the laptop, everything is down, the room is dark, surveillance camera is still recording. When I am there, it is recording me interacting. When I'm not there, what is it doing? It is still recording, it is still illumining the absence of any movement. So that in whose presence the absence of this mind and its lack of interactions is also illumined, that is what we call as consciousness. So it is awareful, conscious principle, Nitya Shuddha Buddha, and it has ever been liberated. There was never a conditioning in that conscious principle. So it is Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swarupa. So conscious principle does not need, does not crave, does not look forward for realization. This this which is a conglomerate of matter, this body, this mind, this intellect, they are all nothing but made up of matter. This conglomerate of matter cannot be realized. Realization cannot happen for these. Why? It is jada vastu, inert. When that conscious principle departs from this body, what is left behind is nothing but a dead carcass. We've seen that. We see that regularly. Then who is realizing and what is being realized? Supposing there is darkness. Wherever there is that darkness, that is where we shine light. An example would illustrate this well. Supposing a key that I have, I lost it while trying to lock the door. It fell off my hand, right in front of the house, of course, obviously. But the light there is not working. The bulb is not working. But in the garage, there is light. Just because there is light there, should I start searching for it there? Wherever there is that which I have lost and it is dark, that is where illumination has to be provided. Similarly, where is this confusion? The confusion is in my intellect. The confusion about who or what is my true nature. Who am I or what is my true nature? So, where should this understanding happen? This illumination happen? In that buddhi, in that intellect. If the conscious principle is always in the state of liberation, mukta swarupa, then who is it that is feeling bound? Who is it that is carrying forward all these agitations? Mind is a place where the agitations happen, but there is a personalized experience that I am going through it. So we have to identify who that fellow is. In the Vedanta Shastra, we call that fellow as the Jiva, or the individuality. See, the sad that the language that is being used is predominantly the influence of the Abrahamic religion, and therefore the vocabulary that it brings in has those Abrahamic connotations. Therefore, when I try translating this individuality or jivatma, jivatva into English, inadvertently in the past, I have also used it many times, several times. We use the word soul. But then upon, especially after moving down to this country in US, I started getting these very different set of questions. How many souls are there? Uh, is the soul alive? Does or do the plants, animals, birds, do they have soul? Is there a gender to the soul? Now, these sets of questions were absent when I was back in India. Then I started researching into the very origin of this word soul. I find that in the Abrahamic reference to it is where all these questions arise. And whenever inadvertently we use the word soul as a translation for it, then it carries forward all that baggage that it comes with, and that baggage is too heavy. So, how do I remove that baggage? Because for the confusions that may be rising because of that word and that usage of it as a translation for Jivatma or the individuality, the closest I find is the next word is individuality. The word soul doesn't cut it. So I would be using the word Jivatma for the individuality. Who is this Jivatma? Because this discourse is not about what the meaning of the word soul is according to the Abrahamic traditions. That is for them to define and they justify it. But I will use the word Jivatma because Vedanta is very specific about what it is. When the conscious principle, which is all pervading, ever existing, as soon as this matter envelopment of this body, mind, and intellect are conceived in the mother's womb, right there in that equipment, this conscious principle reflects in the buddhi, in the intellect. Buddhi, the internal equipment with all the faculties of the organs of perception action, it packs and moves from one body to the other. Punarjanma Siddhanta. Punarjanma again is not reincarnation. Incarnation is of that Narayana or any other deities that Ishvara chooses to express himself as. We have rebirth. We don't have a choice, and we don't make a conscious decision where, how I have to be born. We are born. That rebirth. So the Punarjanma Siddhanta, when the Jiva is conceived in the mother's womb, that conscious principle now reflects in that buddhi. From that buddhi, as though by law of conduction or induction, so it travels or it moves, that conscious identity which is reflecting, that reflected light also carries a similar quality as the source. Like light, when it shines through the mirror, when it reflects through the mirror, that reflection also has heat and light quality. Similarly, this reflected consciousness has the same or similar quality as that conscious principle. It reflects in the intellect, identifies with the intellect, and then it identifies with the mind, then the organs of perception action, then the world outside. This conglomerate of identification is called jivatva. That fellow is now bound with this idea that I am this body, mind, and intellect. That intellect has to become pure, still, and awareful. In that stillness, when it can clearly see that what I am seeing is the reflection which I am identifying as, but in reality, it is nothing but that conscious principle which is reflecting here. Therefore, I cannot be the reflection, I have to be the source. That clarity, when it clicks, buddhi stops. This conscious principle that I am, I do not require the buddhi to validate. Just like the lamp, when it is lit, before it can illumine anything else, it is illumining its own presence. If you get the drift of it, similarly, this conscious principle illumines everything, including that buddhi. Now, that buddhi, there is no more confusion, doubt, or questions, therefore, it stays still. And in that abidance, for long periods of time, when I abide in it, there is no further thing that can jolt me out of it. And I bring that same awarefulness in spite of Vyavahara. This Jagat is not a Badhakaraka. It doesn't stop me. It doesn't become a stumbling block in my experience to interact with the world outside, being that awareful conscious principle. This is called realization in expression. Hope and pray that we reach to that point of purification of the system, fine tuning of the system, turning it within, and abiding in our true nature. I hope I have explained all the steps, and what I shared today is, though I have tried putting it in a very shortened format of, in this nutshell of this nugget, the whole Prakarana Granthas speak on this very aspect elaborately. So let us make that study a priority so that our clarity is well established on the seat of meditation, that intellect clearly recognizes and finds that stillness. Let us all meditate to reach there and abide in our true nature. May that Ishvara bless us all. Hari Om.